Hello, and welcome to the next episode of the Live Your Spa Life show. Spa life is a lifestyle that accepts that accomplishment and harmony coexist. The Spa and Spa Life, the SPA, is for seek power always, that power within you to do your greater work in the world. I am so delighted to have our next guest here on the show, Sonny Mayo, who spent most of his adult life as a guitarist, major label recording artist, and music producer. In 2013, he joined his former bandmate in the nonprofit organization Rock to Recovery. And Sonny is a board member, a brand ambassador, and program administrator for Rock to Recovery, as well as a breathwork facilitator. He uses his work he uses music as a catalyst for human transformation by writing and recording original songs with people in various stages of recovery, ranging from substance use disorder to veterans with PTSD and mental health issues and more. Sonny, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Diane.
This is so great. I'm just so excited to have this conversation. One of the things that I noticed on the website is it talked about music as medicine. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. So there's reactions that the body and mind and spirit have to hearing music and specifically to playing music. So we've locked this down pretty well and we're still exploring it, but there's a neurotransmitter, which I'm sure a lot of your viewers, listeners will be familiar with, oxytocin, which is the love molecule, the cuddle chemical, the hug drug. It's released in the body in so very many different instances, but one of which is when we actually play music. So listening to music, dopamine receptors, serotonin, stuff like this, oxytocin also, but there's something unique that happens when we play. Both sides of the brain are engaged. Oxytocin is released into the body. There's bonding between us, right? Look back to tribal times when people first started. I mean, somebody had two sticks and was hitting a hollow log, and then their partner, they were like, oh yeah, and it was and they found rhythm, and then started going with drums and then stringed instruments, right? And so this medicinal value of playing music is what we harness in Rock to Recovery, specifically with people who are in various stages of recovery and really are trying to rewire their brains. And there are new neural pathways that are carved when one learns most anything. We aim at the instrument. It doesn't matter if someone's a musician or not, or a singer or not, or has any musical experience with Rock to Recovery. I mean, with in their life with Rock to Recovery, we actually can give it to them right like that. We can teach people in real time a quick bass line on the keyboard, a little piano part, maybe 2-4 notes on the guitar. They've never played guitar in their life, but they find this melody that we give them, and then we play along and write lyrics and sing as a group. We call it the gang sang. That was coined by our Nashville program administrator, Phil Bogard. The gang sang, where everybody sings along. And there's magic that happens in these groups. So it's such a great experience. And music has been looked at so much as just an experiential, like kind of a fun thing, and it is. But there is measurable changes that occur.
Right. Well, just the healingness of, you think about like when a song comes on the radio and how it speaks to your soul. It may actually remind you of a time in your life, good, bad, sad, all of that. And being in that creative process, especially as a community, I could see how that could really, catapult people to a new level. I'd like to hear like some of the songs, like the titles of the songs. I'd like to hear a little bit about that because, I was kind of poking through in the website and I saw things like, Dead Eyes, about life being the journey, and Scars and Broken Soul, so there's the depths, right, of when people feel despair and feel like maybe they've hit rock bottom and some of those things. How is it that some of the music kind of helps pull people through those tough times?
It's amazing. Okay, I'm so glad that you did that research. Love it. Yeah, they get to we meet them where they are. The one thing that we try to inject into each song is some hope. Yeah. So if someone, like, I know that Dead Eyes song is the one I actually wrote and recorded that with some people in a treatment center, and it was a guy who had experience as a rapper, but had lost everything and had crashed it down on him, and he was starting again, and he saw himself in the mirror, and he's like these dead eyes, right? But then he was like, wait a minute, I'm like a shark. I'm actually like, I'll come alive, and even though my eyes may be dead or whatever, I'm still powerful. And he was pulling this SPA move right there. He's seeking power in that darkness, from the darkness to come up, broken soul, these things. And then there's always a little injection of hope in there.
Right. I love
Hmm.
that. What has changed for you personally in your musical expression? I'm assuming that there's been some, when you play under the influence, or whether yourself personally, or people around you versus playing sober. What's that transition been like?
Well, it's incredible. So I have been a professional musician since 1996. I got my first record deal when I was 25, 26 years old with a
Hmm.
band called Snot from Santa Barbara, California. And we were buck wild. In fact, I just spoke to my dear old friend Mikey Doling, who's on his way to Belgium because he's in a band called Channel Zero, and we reconnected. He was the other guitar player. Our singer sadly was killed in a car crash that was his fault. He was under the influence of many things, and so the band ended. But we are still dear friends. And so the stark difference. I struggled with substance abuse, substance use disorders, alcohol, drugs, everything, from the time I was around 15. And I was in rehab when I was 16, and I still kind of like fumbled through and got record deals, and then but it all crashed down. And when I became sober and was stepped out of the music business, I stepped away from it. I was like, I got to save my life. And I got sober, and then I got invited back in from people who knew me when I was drunk and high, but saw me for who I was. And then they knew I was sober, and they were like, "Hey, we want you to play in our band." And so I
Hmm.
got to have these new experiences, Diane. I got to do it again with new eyes, and have
Yeah,
these. Oh my God, I got to
absolutely.
travel the world again. And when I play, we were just talking about, my friend Mikey and I were talking about these festivals that we get to play versus, like, I played a show in Poland called Polish Woodstock, and there were 600,000 people there. 600,000 people I got to play in
What a
front of,
rush.
and I've played in front of six people, right? And it's actually a little more difficult to play in front of six than it is 600,000. You may not believe it, but it is. And this connection, right, where I can actually I can see you, and then they can see me, see them, and they're like, whoa, right? So there's that depth of connection, and then the thoughts that we have as specifically as addicts and alcoholics is that we can't do what we used to do and be either good at it or enjoy it or be around it because there's drugs and alcohol. But I was able to re-enter this world, party situations all around around the world, and I was safe and protected because I was taking steps. I was practicing seeking power from within, and I got to have these new experiences where even though I played better, I used to think I couldn't play. I can't play. I got to be higher. I can't be creative.
Right.
And that's the belief that I brought on from all those years, and it's a lie. It's a
Right.
lie. But it takes
Right.
time. It took time
Yeah.
away from the drugs and alcohol, and then a lot of time with spiritual connection, because that's for me where recovery lies, is based in spiritual practice, tailored to the person,
Yeah.
tailored to the individual.
Absolutely. Well, especially right now, and over the last couple years, I mean, there's been so much social disconnection. People being in states of fear. There's just been, there's suicide rates have been up, high. Drug use. A lot of these things have really impacted, particularly in the last couple years. When you look back at your like 15-year-old self, and can you kind of see like where your mindset was at? Was there anything anyone could have said or done for you that could have shifted your trajectory? Obviously everything that we do, all of our experiences, they lead us to the next direction and transformation that we need to experience in our own life. But when you look back at that, because we've got a lot of listeners who have teenage kids, and it's like, pulling their hair out, like, what is it I can do to help my child move through some tough times? Any advice around that? Any reflections?
It's interesting. Thanks for asking that, by the way. And overdose rates are in 2020 were the highest they've been potentially ever. I don't know if it was ever, but it's
Very
obvious.
high.
Stress and disconnection, yeah. And some people say, and I don't disagree, that the root of addiction is disconnection, and the root of recovery is connection. And I'll call connection God. I mean, whatever you want, however you want to run.
Right. I agree.
So I was on I don't know if you ever know the app Clubhouse, but it's like there's a chat room
Yes.
and all these things. And so I'd end up in these for a little while. And there was one day there was a question that was the topic, which was, what would you tell your teenage self right before you started doing the things, or when you were in trouble? This same question. And the first thing I recall, or first thing I realized, is that everyone who was sharing before me kept saying things like, you don't want to do that. This is going to kill you. They were saying the exact same things that everyone was saying.
Right.
That in here, out there, it didn't do, and it did not help. Fear, warnings, it doesn't work. I don't know what tough love means to some people, discipline, stuff like that. Okay. Routine potentially. But the first thing I said when it was my turn is, what I would do first is I wouldn't say anything. I would listen. I would say, hey, buddy, what is it that, if you're willing to, what is it that you're trying to say that we're not hearing?
Mm.
And then shut up. And don't give an excuse to why their feelings aren't valid or whatever. Just listen first. And then I would try to encourage, what do you like? Because, with all the level of love and respect I can muster for my parents, they discouraged me from playing music. It was the only thing that I felt connected. The only thing. Video games? Yeah. Nowadays it's like you can have a career playing video games.
Right.
But that was me escaping, right? Music was not just an escape, it was a connection for me. And they couldn't encourage me. They didn't have it in them to encourage me. So I would say that find out what your kids really like beyond just pop culture stuff and TikTok or whatever. Beyond that, like, what do you like? What interests you? And be their friend. I was
Yeah.
talking to Mikey. This guy's 55 years old. He's gonna love that I just keep quoting about our conversation. Just had it, dear friend. And he and I've had rough times with each other. We were both drug addicts or in active addiction. Had business issues, band members, all this, which is like a marriage, and so to four other people.
Yeah.
And so he is a 55-year-old man who has a 9-year-old son. He's came from unbelievable abuse and trauma, physical trauma, was kidnapped by one of his siblings, all this held hostage, SWAT teams. I mean, and this guy is breaking the cycle by being his 9-year-old son's friend.
Mm.
And he's a rock star. This guy, he's going to Belgium to play festivals, huge festivals
Right.
in Belgium. And he's a nerd to his son. But
So
he's his son's best friend. That's what I would say. Try to encourage.
So two things. So if you're, if you would listen to that 15-year-old self, what would your self would have said?
I would have said, what do we need to do to get you more comfortable, better at what you're doing? And I probably would try to like be relaxed also, because there's a thing where we, and I'm not even a parent, so it's probably easy for me to say this. I didn't raise a child, so they're looking at this child, this 15-year-old child that they came out of their bodies, right? So
Right.
I want to preface this by saying I don't have all the answers, but with me, it would have been some type of encouragement. There's also the factors of like mom and dad were split up, like there's all this stuff, and there was generational trauma and all the things, right?
Sure.
And so there's all of that. But as far as like to encourage, it would be, hey, let me know if you need something, like if you need any help with this, how you doing with that, and then
Right.
kind of let them do their thing while still practicing whatever discipline parents
Right.
decide.
Right.
Discipline not being like, but being structured.
Right. Some boundaries.
Boundaries, yeah. Routine, boundary, structure, yeah. I
Got
think
it.
that's what I feel like naturally. These are lovely questions. This is like this is great. This feels like for like what I would kind of want for 15-year-old Sonny.
Ah, good, good. Well, it's interesting because I'm a parent. I've got two grown daughters and four grandchildren, and they don't come with manuals, right? And one of the things that I in reflecting back on is that my daughters, even though they were only 18 months apart, they were very different people. right? And I think for me, I did a lot of similar parenting with them, whereas looking back, I would have done very different parenting with them, because meeting them where they're at, kind of that what they need, and that whole kind of balance between having that boundaries and discipline and structure, and of course, it didn't help too. Their mom was a cop at the time as well, so you got that going on. And being a cop's kid's not that easy. And but then also wanting to be their friend in certain situations where I could see pushing the envelope, especially for my older daughter, that if she didn't have some level of freedom, it actually would have had the opposite effect. So knowing to, like, if kids were going to didn't want the drinking and driving, that they could all stay at the house type thing, and having just some boundaries around that, because she actually lost friends her senior year with bad choices and things that just happened, around that. So I think that for parents, in fact, I was told about a book at one time called, Walking on Eggshells. And it can sometimes feel that way at different stages with kids, because you just never know, like, where they're at and what they need. And that's one of the things I love about the programs and things that you're offering, is that you're meeting people where they're at and what they need and the support that they may need to have. And we talked a little bit here about, like, structure, and I like to talk a little bit how you kind of consciously create the life that you want to live, and what are some of those structures that you put in place for yourself and that you use for coaching of people that you're guiding.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing all that. And that's amazing to think that there are a lot of kids who had parents who were like, hey, look, I know you guys are going to get buck wild and you're on drink underage, whatever. Let me know if you need to stay at the house or need a ride home. It's beautiful.
And that was controversial, right? Because there were a lot of parents that were like, hey, zero tolerance, you can't drink type thing. And you know what? That was not a big deal for my younger daughter, but for my older daughter, you know what? They would have done it no matter what. It's like, what could I do to protect them to actually survive it?
To make it through. Yeah. So they weren't, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, it's beautiful. And so, yeah, so, okay. So as a guy who, had lived a completely unstructured life previously, and then hitting bottom, with drugs and alcohol and with spirituality, I was spiritually bankrupt. And I came into a 12-step fellowship and took the 12 steps and had what we refer to as a spiritual awakening that literally removed the obsession to drink and use. I do not obsess on drugs and alcohol. I'm a free man, and I'm still active in 12-step programs and obviously with the work that I do with treatment centers and such. And so I keep going through these different phases of like structure. So, we can say pretty much that it starts the night before, my day starts the night before. So I do my best, and I'm human and whatever, to wind down correctly for me. And I do some meditation, some soft breath work to try to ease into it, take a warm shower or hot shower, and turn the screens off, try to help the melatonin come in, that kind of stuff. And then recently I can be honest with, because we're human, is I've been struggling with some anxiety and some depression. And, I have a heart condition, or I have coronary artery disease. I've actually had 2 heart attacks, and I have 5 stents. You may have, if you did any research, it's quite public, about my health conditions and stuff. And so, and then COVID comes, and I was grounded. You got this issue with clotting and all that stuff. So I've been grounded, for the most part. And so keeping structure in that realm. Whew. So I've gone through these different phases of morning routine. And I think I wrote in our kind of pregame warm up, I wrote some of the things that I do. So I've kind of altered it now, or tailored it now, to when I awaken, go into the kitchen, drink some water, take a probiotic, put the coffee on, feed the dog, let the dog out, pour the French press. I get on the floor on my mat, 3 minutes of crunches, 3 minutes of like a down dog push up, and then pour the coffee, read a morning devotional. I'm reading one right now. There's so many fantastic daily readers, right? Mark Nepo, The Book of Awakening, awesome book. And then I'm reading
that right now.
Yes.
I've had it for a while and I finally just picked it up the other day.
I love some Mark Nepo. And then generally speaking, I will do morning pages. Some people may know The Artist's Way, Julia Cameron, and I'll just write for 3 pages. This is the ideal day. I don't always get all of it across,
Right.
but and then I'll do breath work, my own practice, excuse me, and then meditate for 10 minutes. So that's my ideal day. If I can get the trifecta of exercise, breath work, meditation, that's a good beginning, right?
Absolutely.
And then the tailoring of my life, making the choices of who I have around me, what I absorb, what I digest. Recently it's been difficult to not look at the train wrecks that are happening all across the globe, but I've also been trying to lean into more positive, life enhancing type of stuff. Like I love Tom Bilyeu and Tim Ferriss and Jim Quick, people like that. Like positive podcasts and such. And so yeah, and then I get to go out into the world. I do go into the world. I do some in-person stuff, but I'm mostly virtual right now. I do rock to recovery groups online nowadays, and I do groups with mostly teens. But I do a group on Thursday nights, Diane, with a treatment center that is in Thailand. So I'm right here. They're in the next day. They're in Friday morning, and I'm in Thursday night, and it's right now.
Wow.
And we write a song together and record it. Like we tailor it, we produce it in the cloud, and then we record it. And you can see I actually just uploaded this. You can go on our SoundCloud page. Anybody who's interested in hearing the songs that we write and record in real time, 90 minutes or less, you can go on soundcloud.com/rock to recovery. And there are some gems and there are some pieces of coal. But hey, the people are getting into it, man. And
Right.
yeah, we have 14, 15 of us now. We just hired our first female program administrator. We've been trying for years to find our first, because we want to, it's about right now. It's a bunch of pushing middle-aged white men. We got to diversify. So we just got our first program administrator in Northern California. We're delighted. I hope I answered the question in its entirety.
Yeah, no, it's looking at, the habits and structure, because that makes such a big difference. In fact, I was just thinking one of the questions I love to ask my guests is that you have a different experience in your bedroom versus your kitchen or your office, right? And our environments impact us. What's your favorite room in your home and why?
Probably my back terrace, actually outside. Being outside, I have a couple hummingbird feeders. I have a butterfly weed, which I don't know why it's called a weed, because it's beautiful and it attracts butterflies. Like, how's that a weed? I got my wind chimes. I'm like a heavy metal hippie, literally. And yeah, so that's probably my favorite area is to kick it outside and watch watch my little totems all
Nice.
around. Yeah.
Love it. It sounds like a lot of serenity and peace, right? When we surround ourselves and create our environments in that way is so great. And, you and I are both products of the 80s. And we talked about one of our favorite words is being rad. And that has some meaning beyond being cool for you. And I'd love for you to share what that's about.
Absolutely. Okay, so in Rock to Recovery, we have this thing. We developed it. It was developed when Wes Geer, who was our founder, my colleague, my former bandmate that I talked about in my bio, and we played in a band. We were in separate bands, and then my singer passed away, and then I actually ended up playing another band. I got sober, left that band, and joined his band. And he wasn't sober at the time, but we became dear friends, have stayed that way. And then he eventually founded Rock to Recovery. And as he started it and started in Orange County, and when he told me about it, I was actually at Rhonda's, Diane, when he told me about it. And this was in early 2013, and our father was dying. Our father had cancer. And I was flying back to Colorado. That's Rhonda Wada, by the way, if you didn't know, Divine Navigation. I was flying back from LA to Colorado to stay at her place and take care of our father while she worked. She traveled and was doing her amazing work. And I was there, and this was a extremely heavy and spiritual time for me, massive spiritual growth. So Wes told me about it, and I wrote about it immediately. And I was like, I want in on this. I told him on the phone, I'm like, I want in, dude. Like I was still touring and stuff with bands, and it was cool, but I was getting a little older, and I wanted to I wanted something else. And so when I came home, he's like, yeah, I'm launching my first group. It was like June of 13. And I said, hey man, can I come down and shadow you? And he's like, I can't pay you. And but I'll buy you lunch. I said, great. Yeah, that's good enough for me. So people who don't know, it's an hour away. Either way, it's an hour to Orange County from where I live. And we would start to do these groups together, and we were developing the program. How do we interact? We're not music therapists. It is a musical, therapeutic musical intervention, because we are not actual musical therapists. We're program administrators, facilitators, certified alcohol drug counselors, but that's really, just so we can make sure that everybody's cool with what we're doing, but we're not music therapists.
Right.
So as we do the group, we begin the group with a check-in, actually. So people, much like a process group or whatever kind of group, we would say, okay, so Malik, would you tell us 2 things that you're grateful for? And if your mood was a genre of music, what genre is it, right? And we've also put out like shakers and maybe a tambourine and some djembe, some drums. So it's in the circle, right? The guitars and stuff are back here. Yeah, we're not doing that yet. And they'd say, hey, Malik says, yeah, I'm grateful for the new connection with my people here, and I'm grateful for another day sober, and I would be heavy metal, or whatever they would say. And then one day, this person, whomever it was, I can't remember the person, but they felt pretty bummed. They were bummed out, and they shared some beautiful stuff with us. And when they were done sharing, before we went to the next person, I went, hey, you know what? You're rad. And I was so serious. I was like, you're rad. And they went, thanks, man. Thanks. And Wes looked at me and was all. And so right there, we started doing it. We call it the Mayo technique. So it's in our manual. It's in our training manual that when you're going from one person to the next, everyone tells that person, you're rad. And now it's like, oh, here. So you can see it we have guitar picks for 30, 60, and 90 days. So here's if you can see that, if you can see the Rock to Recovery logo. And then on the other side, it says 30 days, and it says you're rad above it.
That's awesome.
Right? And it's in Iron Maiden letters. I don't know if you know Iron Maiden, but it's their logo letters, the font.
Yes.
But yeah, so it's like, let's get rad, y'all.
I love it, right? It's that positive reinforcement, that, encouragement that is just like
encouragement.
It's such a great word, and for a lot of people, they are not that familiar with it, who weren't around in the 80s. It's kind of made itself full circle again. So I love that you're just kind of, you're bringing it back into the mix again, and that it's something to lift people up. So I think that is just really, really amazing, that you have that and that you're doing that. And to kind of circle back around to your amazing sister, Rhonda, have you actually gotten your divine coordinates?
I haven't done it.
Oh, dude.
I'm so bad. But my sister, is that noisy?
No, you're good.
Good. There's a little bit of construction, but I say a lot of construction across the street.
Yeah, no, you got a great microphone, so you're all good.
Yes. Hello. So my amazing sister, gosh, we've been through a lot together, she and I. I love her dearly. And we had a troubled childhood. We each had our own experience, right? Like you were saying, you raised both the same way, maybe different for one.
Right.
Right. They didn't know what to do with either of us.
Right.
So I think they raised us both the same way, and we turned out to be different people. But she and I are so very similar in where we've landed in the transformative healing works.
Right.
Both.
Right.
It's amazing.
And your groundedness to spirituality, I definitely can see the through line in that, and I recognize that in the spirit of your family. So it's beautiful to see.
Yeah. So she actually invited me during this time. She was doing a virtual workshop, and she invited me to do a breathwork circle with her participants.
Wow.
I mean, I would never have imagined that I would be co-facilitating with my sister, backing her up in this healing, and being able to, and I led her in it as well,
right,
in this group. What a blessing that is.
Yeah, I bet. Well, and she never does anything that she's not led to do, and that the pendulum doesn't guide. So that was a divine meeting right there for sure.
I'm lagging, Diane.
Okay, well, I'm going to put it out there that needs to happen. Hello.
We've talked about it, and I'm like, I got to do this other thing first.
Oh, it's so cool because there's an embodiment practice to it as well. And it's a really amazing work. So Divine Navigations is definitely, I'm a fan. So you definitely should connect, especially since you got an inside track there.
No, I know somebody on the inside. I got a
You know
backstage
somebody?
pass.
I can introduce you to somebody.
Hey, can you get me backstage? Do you know anybody?
There you go. I'll get you backstage. So fun. Well, I love this. Well, this has been such a great opportunity just to talk about, Rock to Recovery and just your journey. And do you, first of all, our listeners are going to want to keep in contact with you. How can they do that?
Yeah, I don't have my own website. Potentially one day I will, but I am readily found on Instagram. Probably my most interactive. You can find me on Facebook, but I'm more of an Instagrammer. But Rock to Recovery as well on Instagram and Facebook, and probably TikTok. And I would like to also say that I'm a breathwork facilitator, right? And at the beginning of the pandemic, our founder, Wes Geer, said, "Hey man, I think we should do a virtual breathwork group every week." And we still do it. So it's on Saturday mornings, 10 a.m. Pacific. One can sign up by going to probably 3 different places. One of 3. The website, rocktorecovery.org/meditations. And because we have a meditation group as well, I think on Wednesdays. And then, or one can go to Instagram, link in the bio. There's a link tree, sign up for breathwork. It's actually, we do ask for a donation. Because I'm getting paid regardless, which is fantastic, right? But if people can't afford it, give 6 pence or whatever, or just come, be part of the community. We have a community that's been running for almost 18 months. Has it been? Yeah,
Perfect.
18 months, yeah, roughly. Next month it'll be 18. And so this is fantastic, right? So, and there is healing through virtual that can be made as well, as I'm sure you are experiencing.
Definitely.
So yeah, there's that. And then rocktorecovery.org is our website. We also just released Wes Geer and Dr. Constance Scharf, our VP of everything, just put a book out called Rock to Recovery.
Nice.
In fact, wait.
Voila. Yes, I saw that on the website. I thought that was really cool because there is so many different people's experiences and backgrounds that they're portraying in there. I mean, anywhere from people who've experienced, sex trafficking to banned people to everyday people, right? There's a lot of different experiences. And so it'll help for people to check that out just to see, you can relate to different people, right? That have different experiences and, what their path were. So I think that's a great resource.
Yeah. So, and you can get it wherever you get books.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Perfect. Well, any final parting words before we jump off?
Just everyone be most excellent to each other. Just be rad.
Be rad. Hey, I don't know how we can end any more than be rad. Well, thank you, Sonny, so much for your wisdom and for being here on the show. And so appreciate you.
What a pleasure.
You got it. And then for our listeners, there is somebody, whether it's yourself going through a tough time right now, make sure that you search out some of these resources, right? There may be a local community in your area, a support group that can help you. Sonny has all kinds of virtual options that are out there. You definitely want to go to the Rock to Recovery website and see what kind of options that can support you, and share this. Please go out and, if you're not already subscribed, please do that, but share this episode. There's somebody, even just one person that needs to hear this message today, that needs to have some positive uplift, that know that they're not alone and that there are resources out there for them. So please share that. And then also, if you have any questions or comments, we'd love to hear them in there. Please tag both myself and Sonny. If you have any questions, we're happy to support you, answer you, and give you any of those resources that you may need. So share it, get it out there. And until we connect again, live your spa life. Bye for now. Bye.